Emma Chen stood in front of the mirror, fixing her dark blue uniform one last time. Today was the most important day of her life. Today, she would meet the Emperor of the Zarkonian Empire. "You can do this," she told herself. Her hands shook a little as she pinned her Earth badge to her chest. Emma was not special in many ways. She was 32 years old, of average height, with shoulder-length black hair and kind eyes. She had worked as a language expert for the Earth government for 8 years. But 3 months ago, everything changed when they picked her for this job. The Zarkonians had found Earth 5 years ago. They came in huge ships that blocked the sun in some places. Everyone on Earth feared them at first. The Zarkonians had taken over 12 other planets. They were known as fierce fighters and strict rule followers. For 5 years, they just watched Earth. Then last year, they finally agreed to talk. That's where Emma came in. "Are you ready?" asked Tom, her assistant. He stood at her door, looking as nervous as she felt. "As ready as I'll ever be," Emma said. She picked up her tablet with all her notes. For 3 months, she had studied everything about the Zarkonians. Their language with its 7 different ways to speak to people of different ranks. Their strict rules about how to act, what to wear, and even how to look at others. Emma and 50 other humans boarded the small ship that would take them to the main Zarkonian vessel. The trip was short but felt like forever. Emma went over her greeting again and again in her head. "Remember," said General Harris, the head of the Earth team, "one mistake could mean war. These aliens don't forgive errors." Emma nodded. The pressure made her stomach hurt. When they arrived, tall Zarkonian guards met them. The guards were over 7 feet tall with blue skin that looked like it had tiny scales. They had ridges on their foreheads and wore heavy armor that made noise when they moved. The humans followed the guards down long hallways with high ceilings. Everything was made of a strange metal that seemed to glow from within. They entered a massive room with a raised platform at one end. "The Emperor's Hall," whispered Tom. "Just like in the pictures." More Zarkonians lined the walls. These ones wore even fancier armor with symbols Emma recognized as military ranks. The room fell silent as a door opened at the far end. Emperor Krozak of the mighty Zarkonian Empire, conqueror of the 12 systems, supreme commander of the Imperial Fleet, eternal ruler of all he surveys, announced a Zarkonian in a booming voice. Emma expected someone huge to enter. All the Zarkonians they had seen so far were tall and powerful looking, but when the Emperor walked in, she was surprised. Emperor Krozak was much shorter than his guards, maybe only 5 feet tall. He had the same blue skin and forehead ridges, but his were more delicate. His eyes were bright purple, almost glowing. He wore gold and black armor that looked heavy for his small frame, and a cape that dragged on the floor behind him. He moved with pride, however, and every Zarkonian in the room bowed deeply as he passed. He sat on a large throne and looked at the humans with interest. One by one, the important Earth officials went forward to greet the Emperor. They followed the strict Zarkonian custom. 3 steps forward, bow from the waist, right arm across the chest, speak the formal greeting. Emma watched carefully, knowing her turn would come soon. Her heart beat so fast, she could hear it in her ears. Everything they had worked for, the future of Earth's relationship with this powerful empire, depended on getting these first meetings right. When General Harris finished his greeting, he signaled to Emma. It was her turn. As the language expert, she would speak the longest greeting in the Zarkonian language. She had practiced it hundreds of times. Emma stepped forward, her legs feeling like jelly beneath her. The Emperor's purple eyes locked onto hers. Emma took the 3 steps forward just as she had practiced. She placed her right arm across her chest and bowed deeply. The room was so quiet, she could hear her own heartbeat. She began to speak the Zarkonian greeting. The words felt strange in her mouth, with clicks and deep sounds that humans rarely used. But she had practiced for months. "Great Emperor Krozak, mighty ruler of the 12 systems, we of Earth come in peace and with deep respect. May your reign be long and your enemies fall before you like dry leaves in a storm. Emma spoke slowly and carefully. She remembered every word, every special sound. The Emperor watched her with those bright purple eyes. His face showed no feeling. Emma continued with the longer part of the greeting, listing the Emperor's many titles and victories. Then something unexpected happened. As Emma reached the middle of her speech, Emperor Krozek's face changed. His nose twitched once, twice. Emma kept speaking, but she saw the Emperor's chest rise as he took a quick breath. And then he sneezed. It wasn't a big sneeze. In fact, it was tiny and high-pitched, almost like a small kitten's sound. The Emperor's cheeks puffed out, and his eyes squeezed shut for just a second. Emma stopped speaking. The sneeze had surprised her, but what surprised her more was how this powerful Emperor looked in that moment. Without thinking, she turned slightly to Tom, who stood behind her, and whispered, "He's actually kind of cute." The moment the words left her mouth, Emma knew she had made a terrible mistake. The room became even more silent than before, if that was possible. Every Zarkonian turned to look at her. Their faces showed shock and anger. Emperor Krozek's purple eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. He looked stunned. Then his eyes narrowed, and his small hands gripped the arms of his throne. Emma hadn't known that Zarkonians had such good hearing. She hadn't meant for the Emperor to hear her words. She hadn't meant to say them at all. The word had just slipped out. Cute was not a word used for Zarkonian emperors. They were called mighty, powerful, fearsome, or glorious, but never, ever cute. In Zarkonian culture, cute meant weak, small, and unimportant. Everything an emperor should not be. General Harris looked at Emma with horror on his face. The other Earth people stepped back from her, as if her mistake might spread to them like a disease. The Emperor stood up. He was small in size, but now seemed to fill the room with his anger. He spoke in the Zarkonian language, his voice cold and sharp. One of the guards translated. "The Emperor says this meeting is over. You have shown disrespect to the throne, and to all Zarkonians. Return to your planet immediately." "Please," Emma said quickly. "I meant no disrespect. It was a misunderstanding. In our culture." The guard held up his hand to stop her from speaking. "The Emperor will not hear excuses. You will leave now." The Zarkonian guards surrounded the Earth group. They didn't point their weapons, but their hands rested on them. The message was clear: go peacefully or be forced to go. As they were led back to their ship, no one spoke to Emma. General Harris walked far ahead, his back stiff with anger. Tom stayed beside her, but even he looked afraid to say anything. When they reached their ship, Emma looked back at the massive Zarkonian vessel. She had studied so hard. She had prepared for every possible question or challenge. But she had never prepared for this, for one small word to ruin everything. The ship's doors closed, and Emma felt tears fill her eyes. She knew what would happen when they got back to Earth. She would be blamed for ruining humanity's first contact with an alien empire. And worse, she might have put Earth in danger. As their small ship flew away from the Zarkonian vessel, Emma wondered if she had just started a war with one whispered word. The trip back to Earth was the longest journey of Emma's life. No one on the ship talked to her. They all sat far away, as if she carried something catching. Only Tom would look at her, and even his eyes showed worry. When they landed at the Earth Space Center in Geneva, reporters waited everywhere. News had already spread about the failed meeting. Cameras flashed as Emma walked down the ramp. People shouted questions. Did you really insult the Emperor? Are the Zarkonians planning to attack Earth? How could you make such a basic mistake? Security guards pushed through the crowd and took Emma to a small room inside the building. 3 serious-looking people in dark suits waited there. Emma recognized them: the head of Earth Defense, the President's chief advisor, and the Director of Alien Affairs. "Sit down, Ms. Chen," said the director, pointing to a chair. Her voice was cold. Emma sat. Her legs felt weak. She had not slept on the trip back. "Do you understand what you've done?" asked the head of Earth Defense. He didn't wait for her answer. "We spent 5 years trying to get the Zarkonians to talk to us. 5 years, and you ruined it in 5 seconds." "I'm sorry," Emma said. Her voice sounded small. "I didn't mean." "It doesn't matter what you meant." The chief advisor hit the table with his hand. "What matters is what they heard. The Emperor is furious. They've cut all communication with Earth." Emma felt sick. Have they made any threats?" The 3 officials looked at each other. The director spoke. "Not yet, but their ships are still in our solar system. We're watching them closely." "Ms. Chin," said the head of defense, "you are no longer employed by Earth government. Your security clearance is revoked. You will leave this building and not speak to anyone about what happened. Is that clear?" Emma nodded slowly. She had expected this. They gave her back her personal things and led her to a side door to avoid the reporters. But news travels fast. By the time Emma reached her small apartment in the city, reporters waited there too. She pushed past them without a word. Inside, Emma locked the door and sank to the floor. How could one small word cause so much trouble? She had only said what she thought in that moment. The Emperor, with his tiny sneeze and puffed cheeks, had looked cute. It wasn't meant as an insult. She turned on her tablet. Her face was on every news channel. They called her the woman who doomed Earth and the diplomat who couldn't keep her mouth shut. Some people wanted her arrested. Others said she should be sent to the Zarkonians as a peace offering. Emma turned off the news and called her parents. They lived in a small town far from Geneva. "Emma, are you okay?" Her mother's worried face appeared on the screen. "I'm fine, Mom. But I think I need to come home for a while." "Of course, sweetheart. People here are talking, but we know you didn't mean any harm." 2 days later, Emma was on a train heading to her hometown. She wore dark glasses and a hat to hide her face. Her phone kept buzzing with messages from old friends and coworkers, some supportive, many not. Tom had sent a kind message, wishing her well and hoping things would blow over soon. Emma looked out the window as the city disappeared. She wondered if things would ever return to normal. She had trained all her life to help Earth connect with other worlds. Now she was the person who might have started an interplanetary war. The train sped through the countryside. Emma tried to think about seeing her parents and her childhood home. But her mind kept going back to those purple eyes, wide with shock at her words. What was the Emperor thinking now? Was he planning revenge, or had he already forgotten her? Just a small human who made a small mistake. She would soon find out that Emperor Krozak had not forgotten her at all. 3 weeks passed. Emma stayed in her old bedroom at her parents' house. She helped in their garden and tried to avoid looking at the news, but it was hard not to. Everyone was waiting for the Zarkonians to do something. Their ships still circled Earth, silent and watching. Each day, Emma felt worse. She had always wanted to help Earth. Now her name would go down in history books as the person who made the first aliens angry. On a cloudy Tuesday morning, Emma was picking tomatoes in the garden when her father came running out of the house. "Emma, come quick. It's about the Zarkonians." Emma's heart jumped into her throat. She dropped her basket and ran inside. Her mother stood in front of the television, her hand over her mouth. On the screen, a reporter stood in front of the Earth Space Center in Geneva. Behind him, a small Zarkonian ship was landing. "Just arrived without warning," the reporter was saying. "This is not one of their big warships. It appears to be a personal transport. Earth Defense Forces are on high alert." The camera zoomed in as the ship's door opened. A single figure walked out. Even from a distance, Emma could tell it was Emperor Krozak. He wore a simpler version of his royal armor and no cape. He looked small next to the human officials who came to meet him. "This is incredible," said the reporter. "Emperor Krozak has come to Earth alone. No guards, no advisors. This has never happened before. The Emperor has never visited any planet without at least 100 soldiers." Emma couldn't believe what she was seeing. Why would the Emperor come alone? Was this some kind of trick? The news kept playing as Emma and her parents watched in silence. The Emperor was taken to meet with Earth's leaders. No reporters were allowed inside. Hours passed. Emma couldn't eat or sit still. She kept thinking about what might be happening in that meeting. Was the Emperor making demands? Was he declaring war? Then her phone rang. She hadn't used it much since coming home. She looked at the screen and saw it was a Geneva government number. "Hello," she answered, her voice shaking. "Ms. Chen." It was a woman's voice. "This is Secretary Liu from the President's office. Your presence is required in Geneva immediately." "My presence? Why?" "The Zarkonian Emperor has asked to speak with you, only you." Emma felt like the floor had dropped out from under her feet. "Me? But I'm not. I don't work for the government anymore. A car will pick you up in 30 minutes. A plane is waiting at the local airport. Please be ready." The call ended. Emma's parents looked at her with wide eyes. "What's happening?" her mother asked. "They're sending a car. The Emperor wants to talk to me." Emma's voice sounded far away to her own ears. "Is that good or bad?" her father asked. "I don't know." Emma packed a small bag with shaking hands. She didn't know what to bring for a meeting with an alien emperor who might want her punished or worse. She hugged her parents goodbye, not knowing if she would see them again. The car came exactly 30 minutes later. The driver said nothing as they drove to the small local airport. A sleek government plane waited there. Emma was the only passenger. As the plane took off, Emma looked down at her hometown growing smaller below. She thought about how far she was from that moment in the Emperor's hall when she had whispered that one word. What did the Emperor want with her now? Why come all this way alone just to speak to her? The plane flew faster than normal planes. In just 2 hours, they were landing in Geneva. Another car waited for Emma. This time, there were security people too. They drove her straight to the Earth government headquarters. Inside, people stared at her as she walked past. Some looked angry, others curious. They took her to a small meeting room and told her to wait. Emma sat at the table, her heart beating fast. Then the door opened, and there he was, Emperor Krozek, ruler of the mighty Zarkonian Empire, standing alone in the doorway, looking at her with those bright purple eyes. Emma stood up quickly, knocking her chair back. She didn't know if she should bow or salute or run. The Emperor walked into the room and closed the door behind him. They were alone. He was smaller than she remembered, only coming up to her shoulders. Up close, his blue skin had a slight shine to it, and those purple eyes seemed to look right through her. "Please, sit," the Emperor said in perfect English. His voice was deeper than Emma expected from someone his size. Emma sat down slowly, surprised he could speak her language. During their first meeting, he had only spoken Zarkonian. The Emperor took a seat across from her. "You are afraid," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Emma admitted. There was no point lying. The Emperor studied her face for a long moment. "In 800 years, no one has ever called me cute before." Emma's face grew hot with shame. "I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean any disrespect. In our culture, it's not always a bad thing to." The Emperor held up a small hand to stop her. "I know. I have studied your culture since our meeting." Emma blinked in surprise. "You have?" "Yes. At first, I was angry. In my culture, to call a leader cute is to say they are weak, not worthy of respect." He leaned forward slightly. "But then I became curious. I wanted to understand why you would say such a thing when you knew it could cause trouble." Emma swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to say it at all. It just came out. You sneezed and it was unexpected. Where I come from, sometimes small things can be cute and still powerful. Like a tiger cub. It's cute, but you still know it will grow into something strong." The Emperor's head tilted slightly. "A tiger cub," he repeated. Interesting. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you know why I came here alone, Emma Chen?" Emma shook her head. She was still trying to process that he knew her name. "In my 800 years, no one has ever been truly honest with me," the emperor said. "My advisors tell me what I wish to hear. My subjects worship me out of fear. You saw me and spoke truth without thinking of gain or loss. That is rare." Emma didn't know what to say to that. The emperor continued, "After you left, I could not stop thinking about this. Why would someone risk everything to speak an honest thought? So I studied humans in secret. I watched your movies, read your books, listened to your music, and I learned something surprising." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "Humans value honesty. You believe leaders can be both strong and kind. In my empire, kindness is seen as weakness, but your people love leaders who show what you call humanity." He turned back to Emma. "Is this true?" Emma nodded slowly. "Yes, the best leaders are both strong and compassionate." The emperor's face showed no expression that Emma could read, but his purple eyes seemed brighter. "I wish to learn more about this human way," he said, "and I want you to teach me." Emma's mouth fell open. "Me? But I'm not. I was fired. I ruined everything." The emperor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You spoke truth when others would not dare. That is why it must be you." He walked back to the table. "I have told your leaders that I wish to appoint you as my personal cultural advisor." They were surprised. Emma bet they were more than surprised. They were probably shocked, speechless. "What would this job involve?" She asked carefully. "You will teach me about humans, how you think, how you feel, why you value what you value. In return, I will teach you about my people. Perhaps we can find a better way for our worlds to understand each other." Emma could hardly believe what she was hearing. 3 weeks ago, she had been the most hated person on Earth. Now the emperor was offering her a job. "Do you accept?" the emperor asked. Emma looked into those purple eyes and felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. "Yes," she said. "I accept." 1 year passed. Emma's life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. She split her time between Earth and the emperor's main ship. Some days she taught the emperor about human customs, art, food, and values. Other days she learned about Zarkonian history and culture. Today, Emma stood beside Emperor Krozak as they looked out over New York City from the top of a tall building. It was the emperor's 3rd visit to Earth, but his first to New York. "So many people," the emperor said, watching the tiny figures moving below. "And they are free to go where they wish." "Yes," Emma said. "Most humans can live where they want, work where they want, and travel freely." The emperor was quiet for a moment. "On my home planet, everyone has a place they must stay. The workers live in worker areas. The soldiers live in army buildings. No one moves without permission." Emma had learned that the Zarkonian Empire was very strict. People were born into their jobs. Everyone followed rules about where to live, what to wear, and even who to talk to. "Do you think your people are happy that way?" Emma asked. She could ask questions like this now. Over the past year, she and the emperor had developed a kind of friendship. "I never thought about their happiness before," the emperor admitted. "Only their usefulness." That was another thing Emma had learned. Zarkonians valued usefulness above all else. A person's worth was measured by what they could do for the empire. "In human culture," Emma explained, "we believe happy people are more productive and creative. When people have some freedom to choose their path, they often work harder because they care about what they do." The emperor turned to look at her. "Is that why humans create so much art and music? Because you are free to do so?" "Partly," Emma said. "We create because it brings us joy and helps us share our ideas with others." Later that day, they visited a park. The emperor watched in fascination as children played freely, running and laughing. Parents sat on benches, talking and smiling. My subjects never look me in the eye, the emperor said quietly. They never smile in my presence. They bow and speak only when spoken to. Does that bother you? Emma asked. The emperor's purple eyes seemed sad. I never realized what I was missing until I came here. No one on my world would play like this. No one would laugh so freely. As they walked, people stared at them. It wasn't every day you saw a blue-skinned alien emperor walking through the park, but most just nodded politely or waved. A few even said, "Welcome to Earth," as they passed. A small girl ran up to them, stopping right in front of the emperor. Her mother hurried after her, looking worried. "Are you really an alien?" the girl asked, looking up at the emperor with big eyes. "Sarah, that's not polite," her mother said, trying to pull the girl away. The emperor held up his hand. "It is fine," he said to the mother. Then he knelt down to the girl's level. "Yes, I am from another planet called Zarkon." The girl smiled. "Cool. I like your eyes. They're pretty." The emperor seemed surprised by this. "Thank you," he said after a moment. "I like your hair ribbons." The girl giggled and then ran back to her mother, who apologized before hurrying away. As they continued walking, Emma noticed the emperor was quieter than usual. "Are you okay?" she asked. "That child spoke to me without fear," he said. "On my world, children are taught from birth to fear me. They must bow so low their heads touch the ground if I pass by." Emma nodded. "Here, we teach children to respect others, but not to fear them." The emperor stopped walking and looked around at the people in the park. "I am beginning to think the Zarkonian way is not the only way. Perhaps not even the best way." Emma smiled. This was huge progress. A year ago, the emperor believed his way was the only right way. Now he was questioning everything he had known for 800 years. "Change is possible," Emma said gently. "Even for an empire." The emperor looked at her with those bright purple eyes. "I am beginning to believe you are right." Over the next few months, the emperor made more changes than he had in hundreds of years. He invited Emma to visit his home planet, Zarkon Prime. No human had ever been there before. Emma looked out the window of the emperor's personal ship as they approached the planet. It was beautiful from space, with swirling blue and green clouds. But as they got closer, she saw that the cities were built in perfect straight lines. Everything was organized and orderly. They landed at the royal spaceport. A line of 1,000 Zarkonian soldiers stood at attention. Behind them were high-ranking officials, all standing perfectly still with their heads bowed. "This is how they always greet you," Emma whispered to the emperor. "Yes, this is actually a small welcome. Usually there would be 10 times more soldiers," the emperor replied. As they walked down the path between the lines of soldiers, no one moved or spoke. Emma felt uncomfortable with all eyes on the ground, avoiding looking at them. "Remember what I told you about eye contact," she said quietly to the emperor. The emperor nodded. He stopped in front of a group of officials and said, "Look at me." Slowly, with obvious fear, the officials raised their eyes. The emperor did something they had never seen before. He smiled at them. It was a small smile, something he had practiced with Emma, but it changed his whole face. "I have returned with new ideas," the emperor announced in the Zarkonian language, which Emma now understood. "There will be changes." Over the next week, Emma watched as the emperor met with his council. These were the oldest and most powerful Zarkonians, who had advised him for centuries. Many did not like the emperor's new ideas. "Allow people to choose their own jobs." "Madness," said one old counselor named Drask. "Let common people speak directly to officials." "Impossible," said another named Ferak. The emperor listened to their concerns, but did not back down. "I have seen another way on Earth. Their society has problems, yes, but their people have energy and creativity that we lack. I want that for our empire." Some of the younger council members seemed interested in the emperor's ideas. One of them, a female named Kira, even asked Emma questions about Earth's educational system. On the 5th day of their visit, Emma and the Emperor took a walk through the capital city. Guards surrounded them, keeping regular Zarkonians far away. "I want to talk to them," the Emperor said suddenly, pointing to a group of workers repairing a building. The guards looked shocked. "Your Majesty, that is not protocol. These are simple laborers. Bring them to me," the Emperor insisted. The guards brought over 3 terrified workers who immediately fell to their knees, faces to the ground. "Stand up," the Emperor said gently. "Look at me." Trembling, the workers stood, but kept their eyes down. "What are your names?" the Emperor asked. The workers seemed too scared to speak. Finally, one managed to whisper his name. "Zoril, your Supreme Majesty." "Zoril, how long have you been a builder?" "All my life, your Supreme Majesty. My father was a builder, and his father before him." "Did you ever wish to be something else?" the Emperor asked. The worker looked confused by the question. He glanced at the other workers, then back at the ground. I do not understand. Your Supreme Majesty, one does not wish for a different place. We serve where we are assigned." The Emperor looked at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. "What if," the Emperor said, "you could choose your work? What would you want to do?" The workers looked at each other in shock. One of them began to shake slightly. "This is not a test," the Emperor said softly. "There is no wrong answer." After a long silence, Zoril spoke. I have always been interested in the stars. In another life, perhaps I would have studied them." The Emperor nodded. "An astronomer instead of a builder." He turned to the other workers. "And you too." Slowly, cautiously, the others shared their secret dreams. One wanted to grow plants. The other loved to carve small figures from stone in his little free time. As they walked away, the Emperor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "How much talent have we wasted over the centuries, forcing people into jobs they do not want?" Emma smiled. The Emperor was really changing. And soon, his empire would change too. Not everyone liked the changes the Emperor wanted to make. 6 months after Emma's first visit to Zarkon Prime, trouble started. The Emperor had made new rules. People could now apply to change their jobs if they had skills for other work. Children could choose different paths than their parents. Officials were told to listen to the people they served. These were small changes by Earth standards, but they were huge for Zarkonians. Emma was with the Emperor in his private office when Kira, the young council member who had shown interest in Earth's ways, rushed in. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing quickly, "General Vox has called an emergency meeting of the Military Council. He is speaking against your changes." The Emperor's purple eyes narrowed. "General Vox has served me for 300 years. He would not betray me." "He says he is not betraying you, but saving you," Kira explained. "He claims the human has poisoned your mind with weak ideas." The Emperor looked at Emma. "It seems not everyone appreciates our new friendship." They hurried to the Grand Council chamber. When they entered, General Vox was standing at the center of the room, speaking to a large group of military officers. "Must protect our traditions," he was saying. "For 800 years, the Empire has grown strong through order and discipline. Now we are told to let people choose their own paths, to speak freely to their betters. This human influence will destroy everything we have built." The officers nodded and murmured in agreement. "General Vox," the Emperor said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone turned and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," General Vox said, straightening, "we are concerned about these recent changes. They go against everything Zarkonian." "Is questioning your Emperor also going against everything Zarkonian?" the Emperor asked. The general looked uncomfortable but stood his ground. "When the Emperor himself goes against our ways, someone must speak up. The humans have made you soft." The Emperor walked slowly toward the general. Despite being much smaller, he seemed to fill the room with his presence. "For 800 years, I have ruled as I was taught," the Emperor said. "And in all that time, no one ever told me the truth. No one dared to question me or suggest a better way. He stopped in front of General Vox, until Emma Chen called me cute. The officers gasped. No one said that word in front of the Emperor. That moment changed everything. The Emperor continued. It made me curious about a culture where people can speak truth without fear, where leaders are judged not by how much they are feared, but by how much they help their people. General Vox frowned. Zarkonians are not humans. Our ways have served us well. Have they? The Emperor looked around the room. We conquer planets because we believe our way is the only right way. We never stop to learn from others. That is not strength. That is fear. The room was silent. Emma watched as the officers looked at each other, uncertain. I do not wish to throw away all our traditions, the Emperor said more gently. But we can learn from others. We can grow stronger by being more flexible, more open. General Vox didn't look convinced. And if these changes weaken us, if other empires see this as a chance to attack, then we will show them that kindness does not mean weakness, the Emperor said firmly. I am still Emperor Krozek. Our military is still the strongest in the galaxy. But now we fight to protect, not just to conquer. The Emperor turned to address all the officers. I ask you to trust me, as you have for centuries. Give these changes a chance. See how they work before you judge them. One by one, the officers bowed. Even General Vox slowly lowered his head, though Emma could see he was still not happy. As they left the chamber, the Emperor said quietly to Emma, change is never easy, but it is necessary. Emma nodded. On Earth we have a saying, the hardest walls to break down are the ones in people's minds. The Emperor looked thoughtful. Then we must be patient. Those walls were built over many centuries. They will not fall in a day. 2 years had passed since that day when Emma called the Emperor cute. It was a day that changed 2 worlds forever. Today, Emma stood in the back of the Great Hall of the United Nations on Earth. Emperor Krozak was about to speak to representatives from every country. The room was packed with people eager to hear what the alien leader would say. The Emperor walked to the podium. He looked different now. He still wore his royal armor, but it was simpler. He stood taller, more relaxed, and he smiled as he looked out at the crowd. People of Earth, he began. 2 years ago, I came to your planet as an emperor who had never been questioned. I ruled through fear and strict control. I believed my way was the only right way. The room was silent, everyone hanging on his words. Then something unexpected happened. A human spoke an honest thought and called me cute. There was a ripple of quiet laughter through the crowd. The Emperor smiled again. That simple word changed everything. It made me question thousands of years of Zarkonian tradition. Emma watched from her place at the back, feeling proud of how far the Emperor had come. He had worked so hard to understand humans and to change himself and his empire. Today, I am here to announce that the Zarkonian Empire will now be known as the Zarkonian Alliance. The Emperor continued. The planets under our protection will have more freedom to govern themselves. We will learn from each other instead of forcing all to follow one way. Applause filled the room. This was huge news. The Zarkonian Empire had been feared across the galaxy. Now it was becoming something new. This change does not mean we are weak, the Emperor added firmly. We are still strong, but our strength now comes from cooperation and respect, not just from power and fear. When the Emperor finished speaking, leaders from around the world came forward to shake his hand. This too was new. Before, no one was allowed to touch the Emperor. Later, at a small reception, the Emperor found Emma. What did you think of my speech? He asked. It was perfect, Emma said. You've come so far. The Emperor nodded. Thanks to you, Emma Chen. Sometimes it takes someone seeing you clearly to help you see yourself. As they walked together through the reception, people watched them with interest. The strange friendship between a human woman and an alien emperor had changed history. Your life is very different now, The Emperor said. 2 years ago, you were the most hated person on Earth. Now you are celebrated as a hero. Emma laughed. Life is full of surprises. I never expected that one word would lead to all this. The smallest actions can have the biggest effects. The Emperor agreed. Like a tiny pebble that starts an avalanche. They stopped by a window overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful colors. Do you ever miss the old ways? Emma asked. Being the all-powerful emperor that everyone feared. The Emperor thought for a moment. Sometimes I miss the simplicity. Being feared is easier than being respected. I never had to consider others' feelings or ideas. He looked at her. But no, I do not truly miss it. I have learned that a leader who is only feared is actually very alone. Emma nodded. She had seen how lonely the Emperor had been, surrounded by people who never dared to speak honestly to him. By the way, the Emperor said with a small smile, do you still think I'm cute? Emma laughed. Absolutely, Your Majesty. But now, I also think you're wise. The Emperor's purple eyes crinkled as he smiled. Something he had learned from humans. What had seemed like the end of everything had actually been just the beginning of something beautiful, an unexpected friendship that changed two worlds. As the sun set on Earth, new connections were forming between planets that once feared each other. And it all started because one human spoke her truth without fear.